Hey, what's going on? Well, I'm back again with another video, this time as promised with a collection update. So if you saw my last video, I mentioned I was going to do that very soon, so this is the one I was referring to. This was an order I placed on Discogs through a shop in Brazil, just because it had a really wide variety of material stuff that I was looking to pick up. So I picked up a total of 10 CDs. I'm probably not going to talk about all of them today because that will take too long. So my plan is to split it up into 2 videos and see how that goes. So as I mentioned, it's a pretty eclectic mix of different subgenres. So hopefully there's something for everyone, but wait and see what I have to offer. So first of all, before I get started, what I've just put on in the background, what I'm listening to, this is Krabathor with Orthodox. So if you're not familiar with Krabathor, they are a death metal band from the Czech Republic. So sort of playing pretty old school, straightforward death metal in the sort of crushing, heavy vein. What I like about it, it's not too technical, it's just brutal, the vocals are awesome, the guitars are heavy. Just some really good catchy songs. So this album, I chose it for today because this one came out, I think 23 years ago it was released, but very underrated band from the Czech Republic. There was one other album that my friend Sylvia taped for me. I can't remember that. That was a good one too, but I would definitely recommend this one anyway. My favorite songs from this are, let's see, Orthodox, the title track, Shit Comes Brown, 2 Red Ones, and About Death. And oh, speaking of About Death, that's more of an atmospheric song. So this band sort of goes for epic moments as well. So it's brutality mixed with that epic style, quite interesting. So anyway, check them out. That's Krabathor with Orthodox. Okay, so getting on to the order I placed. Quite a few CDs. I'm going to talk about 5 today probably. So just to let you know, the first band in mention is ALCATRAZZ with Born Innocent. So the trend these days is they come with these slip cases which mirror the cover. Kind of pointless, but it is good for display purposes. Now, with ALCATRAZZ, I have spoken about them before. A few videos back, I made a video called Hard Rock Heavy Metal Volume 2. To be honest, that was my least popular video to date. Not many people like that for whatever reason. But I think one of the reasons is maybe because it went on for too long. It was like 45 minutes or something. So I know people don't really want to see that. So anyway, if you didn't see that, I would just advise you maybe go back to the last 15 minutes of that video because I talk about this band, their first 3 albums. I think this is a very underrated heavy metal band and they really are very different. So this band released 3 albums in the 80s and they're famous because they were kind of a supergroup. They featured Graham Bonnet, who was in Rainbow for a while, and after he left Rainbow he formed this band with Yngwie Malmsteen. And that was interesting, this band had a lot of guitar wizard players throughout the 80s. So first album it was Yngwie Malmsteen, second album Steve Vai, third album Danny Nelson. No, not Danny Nelson, what did I say? What's his name? It'll come to me, Danny Johnson, that's it, yeah. Anyway, so due to lack of label support, they split up in 1986 and they never resurfaced until recently. Like this album came out 1 or 2 years ago, I think. So anyway, extremely good band. Go and watch the last 15 minutes of my Hard Rock Heavy Metal Vinyl Volume 2 video. You get an album by album description of this band. But anyway, this album, after 35 years in hibernation, they released this album and it's brilliant. So if you're not familiar with their sound, it's sort of in the vein of Rainbow, like very progressive hard rock heavy metal with a lot of synthesizers and blistering guitar solos and powerhouse soaring vocals from Graham Bonnet, which are just amazing. So essentially, if you like old ALCATRAZZ albums, you'll be right at home with this album. It's playing exactly the same style, like all those elements you like about the band, the synthesizers, the blistering guitar solos, the soaring vocals, and so on. And they do that to really fine effect on this album. So they're not exactly trying to create anything new, but just doing what the fans like. But what differs with this album is the production is just brilliant, like so heavy and chunky. So which is often the case these days, like production just gets better and better, but this makes for a really good release. Out of those first 3 albums, the one it's probably closest to is No Parole from Rock and Roll, which many people regard as their best. My favorites are probably the second and third, but obviously I like all of the albums, and as a fan, you will not be disappointed by this band. So, by this album, I should say. So again, for some reason, the booklet is broken up into pages, so just pictures of the band. And oh, this is the new guitarist. So it's got the same core lineup of Graham Bonnet and Gary Shea on bass and Jimmy Waldo on keyboards. And then new members, you've got Mark on drums and a guy called Joe Stump on guitars. So anyway, brilliant lineup for this album. Like, everything is played so brilliantly well. It's amazing. And it's sort of like accentuating all of those traditional elements of this band. Like, some of these solos are absolutely nuts. Like, and the same with the keyboard solos, actually. So you really have to sort of listen to this band if you've never heard them to get an idea of what they sound like. But honestly, they are fantastic. So this album, it's like, I thought, wow, it's long overdue, but this album is just amazing. So no bad tracks on this album. What's it? Track 10 is kind of, that's called The Wound Is Open. That's reminiscent of a track from Dangerous Games called Ohio Tokyo. So sort of paying tribute to earlier albums. But my favorite songs actually come in the middle, like tracks 5 to 9. So London 1666, Dirty Like the City, I Am the King, Something That I Am Missing, and Paper Flags. But as I said, the whole album is fantastic. You like blistering guitar solos and just amazing musicianship and vocals, you've got to check this out. So that's ALCATRAZZ with Born Again. Okay. So this is Two Red Ones now, playing by Crabathor. Great song. All right. Okay. So next, moving to some more traditional heavy metal, I picked up ANVIL's album, Pounding the Pavement. If you've seen my channel before, you'll know I'm a fan of this band, but I haven't collected all of their material, so I'm sort of picking it up piece by piece. This is one of their most recent albums, and it is fantastic. Like, I feel that since this band has got more of the recognition they deserved after the documentary, they've just gained more confidence and they've become more prolific with their release schedule. The albums get better, catchier, and heavier. So I know some people say, oh, the first 3 albums are the essential ones. Yeah, sure, they are, except check some of these newer albums out. They're just amazing. Like, so heavy, groovy, catchy. And what I love about this band, I always have, is they just embody everything I like about heavy metal. It's fun, heavy, catchy, anthemic, great songs to sing along to. And they do have they're from Canada. It's like a unique sound, so maybe that's the Canadian element, I don't know, but especially with Lips' vocals and just the guitar tone and everything, and amazing guitar solos. If you're a fan of traditional heavy metal and you haven't checked this band out, definitely check this one out. This album is one of their heaviest. I think my brother said it's one of his favorites. I introduced him to this band a few years ago. He became an even bigger fan than me. So then I went around to getting this, and I thought, yeah, it's just brilliant. So if you know ANVIL and you haven't heard this album, it's all of those traditional aspects of the band that you're familiar with, but just accentuated and heavier and catchier. So really no complaints there whatsoever. And just show you the disc itself. It's got that same kind of jackhammer design. Yeah, there you go. But yes, Canadian heavy metal at its finest. Now, this album has so many brilliant songs. How many songs we got here? 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 songs, including the bonus track, Don't Tell Me. But my favorite songs, I've got about 7 favorite songs. That's how good the album is. So when you're saying half of the album or more, you know it's good. Opening track, Bitch in the Box, is so heavy and catchy, brilliant. Ego is very catchy as well, track 2. Also, Smash Your Face, very heavy song, and that chorus sticks in your head. The other day I was at work and I couldn't get that chorus out of my head. That's paying kind of tribute to Black Sabbath, as this band often does, with very sort of heavy, slow songs. But I feel sometimes when this band does the slower songs, that's when their really heavy side comes out. So Smash Your Face is a great track. Also, Let It Go, just an amazingly epic, atmospheric, anthemic song, like one of my favorites. Very sing-along chorus on that song. Also, Nanook of the North, like great chugging riff in that, and also, again, a real sing-along song. What else? Black Smoke, oh, brilliant. Like, that's going back to a sort of faster, thrashy style. It shows how this band can go for so many approaches, like fast and thrashy, slow and heavy, but they always sound amazing. So that's a great track. And also World of Tomorrow, another big anthemic track. So anyway, really fun, really catchy album. I definitely recommend this if you haven't heard it. That's ANVIL with Pounding the Pavement. Okay, now remember I said this update is quite versatile, in my opinion, because it covers different genres. So right now we're moving along to some black metal. This is Baptism with The Devil's Fire. Okay, so again, if you're not familiar, Baptism are a black metal band from Finland. I have spoken about them before in a black metal vinyl video. Speaking about that album, The Behereal North, which was the first one I actually got. This one is a lot more recent, and my friend Chris from Brazil, he recommended this album actually, and decided to pick it up because I saw it on this Brazilian website. It's amazing, yeah. So just show you the booklet. So there's a portrait of the band, cool corpse painted picture, and Marduk Opus Nocturna shirt there. Okay, so you've got all lyrics. This time, I think they're all in English, so not in Finnish. Yeah, I believe so, actually. And just showing you the disc. Yeah, so nice sort of oil painted photo. That artwork is very eerie and atmospheric. I really like it. So if you haven't heard this band before, essentially it's very riffy Finnish black metal. So as I've mentioned before, Finnish black metal bands have this tendency to write really emotive, epic, catchy riffs which really just stick in your head, and they're ingenious and very emotive. That is definitely the case with this band, although I will say, compared to the Behereal Midnight, which was quite raw and traditional black metal, I feel like on this album they've really amped up the game in certain aspects. Like, for one, the production is a lot clearer, the production is much more grandiose. There's the use of keyboards on this album, and that's not a bad thing at all, of course, but compared to the earlier ones where they didn't have that, it's quite different. And yeah, just some really epic kind of synthy moments as well. So yes, it is traditional black metal, like a lot of Finnish bands, just like Horner. I always find that Horner take a lot of inspiration from Gorgoroth, and I feel like this band does as well, on this album anyway. So to give you some kind of idea, it's riffy Finnish black metal, but imagine with the like a general sound of Gorgoroth, but also the epicness of Enslaved, actually. And when I mention Enslaved, like, think of an album like Rune or something like that from 2006. Now, this is nowhere near as Viking or prog metal as Enslaved, but just that overall grand feel with the use of synthesizers and effects. So imagine Gorgoroth combined with that atmospheric side of Enslaved, and then some great riffs. That's what you have with this album, and I really, really like it. It sounds unique. It's one of those albums, it'll take a while to get your head around, in the sense that I think it's an overall listen album. You're not like really looking at standout tracks, it's that overall feel, but it's really, really good. So it's hard to really choose favorite tracks because they're all good, except my favorite one is track 6, I believe I know that. Yeah, I think, which is Cold Eternity, just because there are really some slow breakdown epic moments in that song, and the song just builds and builds with a great atmosphere. So yeah, what can I say? Great album by a band that's changed quite a bit, but not for the worse. They've just developed their sound. So if you're a fan of Finnish black metal, you like atmospheric black metal and a grandiose kind of atmosphere, check this out. That's Baptism with The Devil's Fire. Okay, how are we going for time? Not too bad at all. All right, so next, moving along to a different subgenre again, kind of. Some black speed metal. This is Bewitched with Rise of the Antichrist. So if you've been watching my channel, you would have seen in the last couple, not the last couple, but in very recent videos, I've spoken about this band quite a lot. They are a black speed metal band from Sweden, and the 3 albums I've spoken about are Diabolical Desecration, Pentagram Prayer, and At the Gates of Hell. So the first 2 albums by this band, it's very sort of speed metal oriented musically with black metal vocals, and then the third one they went in more of a traditional heavy metal direction. So I had never picked up any other albums by this band after that, and I don't know why it took me so long to get around to this, but this shop in Brazil had it, and I thought, yeah, finally, I've been talking about them lately, I'm going to pick this up. So of the 3 albums I mentioned before, I think that album, the last one, At the Gates of Hell, is weaker than the other 2. Even though it went for a different approach, which was interesting, I just felt that it it lacked something, some bite, which the other albums had. So anyway, with this album, they're sort of returning to their traditional form of like more aggressive. It's more fierce again, so going back in that aggressive Black Speed direction. And you can sort of, cool artwork by the way, quite interesting. You can see that by the fact that they've put the corpse paint back on again. So in At the Gates of Hell, they'd shed it off as they were turning more sort of traditional heavy metal, but now they're going back to their roots. So you've got the booklet here. Yep, there's a portrait of the band. So the two core members are the same, so Wagner and Rothier, but then they have two new members here in the form of Hellfire and Stormlord. Yeah, so if the booklet is any indication, it's telling you that there's the logo as well, that there's a more traditional Bewitched sound on this album. So it's kind of, in a way, it's a comeback album to their old form, which people enjoyed. Okay, just the disc, that picture image too. Now, this album, yes, it's going back in the direction of the first two albums, but there are some notable differences. First of all, the production on this album is a lot rawer. You might have heard me say that on the first two albums, the production is really clean and shiny and polished. On this one, it's going for a sort of rawer, dirtier, rougher sound, and maybe that's to make it sound more extreme again, but for whatever reason, that's what it sounds like. It does suit the music though. The other thing I would say about this album is it's not just Black Speed metal, but it also incorporates some thrash metal, some really, really thrashy elements and riffs, those kind of bouncy, I don't know, like old Slayer, old Metallica-esque riff in certain parts, so not the whole way through. And also another aspect is, not only do they have thrash elements, like a lot of really, really groovy parts, like again, probably stemming from thrash, but not only that, some very slow breakdowns where they ride on some really doomy, heavy riffs. So compared to the first two albums, it's a lot, while it's aggressive, it's just a lot more diverse. So I think that's something new from Bewitched. They're sticking to their old sound, but they're not stagnating, which I really like about this album. So anyway, really good album, no weak tracks. Like, it's just, if you like the old albums, you will like this. Some of my favorites though are track 2, which is Under Satan's Spell, also track 3, Victim of the Cult, and track 6, Hell's Triumph. That's a song where they've got some really slow, heavy breakdowns, but it's just so infectious. Some of the riffs on this album, that you're really banging your head. It's awesome. So really pleasantly surprised by this long overdue purchase I made of this band. So that's Bewitched with Rise of the Antichrist. Okay, and now to round off this video, God, too much talking. Okay, I'm going to finish up with some death metal. So this band needs no introduction. This is DEICIDE with Overtures of Blasphemy. So again, it's got one of those pointless slip cases, but it is kind of cool. They've got the hype sticker here. And yep, there's the front cover. And you can see here, this artwork is very indicative of what to expect. I'll explain more in a moment, but you may have heard me say DEICIDE is one of my favorite death metal bands. That's true. I've really liked all of their albums, although I suppose they did go through a phase where a couple of albums didn't grab me so much. The most obvious, well, I think I heard that the band was trying to rush their recording contract with Roadrunner, so they released a couple of mediocre albums, which were supposedly Incinerate Him and In Torment in Hell. Incinerate Him, I think both of those albums, I think in the words of Glenn Benton himself, he described those albums as fucking crap. But I actually liked parts of Incinerate Him. In Torment in Hell, however, compared to the other albums, it's quite mediocre, but I think that was intentional on part of the band, although there were a couple of good songs like Child of God and Let It Be Done. But anyway, yeah, overall I really like this band a lot. Oh, there was another album that didn't grab me so much, Till Death Do Us Part, but overall I've always liked this band, especially the earlier albums, and in more recent albums they've come back to form. I'll be honest with you, I've missed a couple of their recent albums just because so many bands, so little time. But when I saw the artwork of this, it made me say, yep, I'm going to buy this. So you can see here, cool cover art by the way, but there's hints at the old sound. So you've got the traditional logo, of course, but here is the Trifixion symbol, which was used on the Legion album. And of course, remember the three-dimensional Trifiction logo? That's also featured here, but it's like a Trifiction on steroids. So I thought, judging by this artwork, it's sounding like they're harking back to their days of Legion, the 1992 album, which is one of my favorites. So yeah, this band has developed its sound over the years. Like the production has become better. They've introduced more melody and harmony into their solos, but like not wimping out. They're just becoming better musicians, in my opinion anyway. But like that other album, The Stench of Redemption, 2006, awesome album. So this album, what I like about it, it's sort of like, I would describe it as a blend of the old and the new, in the sense that it's got the brutality and to an extent some of the technicality of the older albums, like Legion, Once Upon the Cross, and so on. Even though that was a more straightforward album, but certainly harking back to the old days. But then it's also incorporating the better production of the newer albums, more melody and harmony, and just blistering guitar solos, more atmosphere. So I would say they're retaining their traditional sound, but it's just becoming more textured, deeper, like just more sophisticated music. And like I said, the production plays a big role in making this sound so brilliant. It's just heavier, it has so much more depth, and all those traditional elements that you really like, you know, like the unique drumming style and rhythms of Steve Ashheim, the bellowing vocals of Glenn Benton, the heavy, aggressive riffs of the band, and the blistering guitar solos. But just with that production, there's some moments where this album just really soars, and it's got so much depth. It's powerful and heavy. I just love it. So still getting my head around it because I've had a few listens, but some of my favorite songs, I would say, on this, tracks 2, 3, 5, and 7 really jump out at me at the moment. So they are Crawled from the Shadows, Seal the Tomb Below, All That Is Evil, and Anointed in Blood. But as I said, not a bad track on this album. And there are some moments where it really feels like it soars for the heights. So another great album by DEICIDE. They keep developing their sound and they're not stagnating once again. So I'm just really curious to see what they'll do next, because I really enjoyed this one. Their most recent one, I think. So anyway, you like old school death metal, you like DEICIDE, you probably do if you know this channel. Definitely check this album out if you haven't. That's DEICIDE with Overtures of Blasphemy. All right, so just have a sip. Surprisingly, this video didn't go on for as long as I had expected, but that's in a good way. I'm not going to talk about 10 albums in this video because, as I said, I don't want these videos to go on too long and for people to get bored. So I'm going to leave it there today with those 5 albums, but you've got a few genres there. The next part of this update is equally eclectic, again crossing over a few subgenres. So again, traditional heavy metal, death metal, black metal, and some other surprises. So hopefully you stick around and watch that one. That'll come soon. As always, thanks for watching and for supporting this channel. I hope you continue to do so. Any comments or questions, just leave them below. That'll be cool. And I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks a lot. Cheers.